Yo, what's up guys, MG Gibbs here. So, today I'm finally giving you guys what you want, and that is my settings. So, I honestly put this video aside for so long because I was planning on adding this with an updated setup video as well, and just combine the two, but I haven't been able to get the parts that I needed for my setup, and I just kept putting that aside. But now I just felt like it's been so long that I might as well give you guys the settings video separate and just update you guys on my setup later. So yeah, with that being said, let's get right into it. So I have a 1070 Ti graphics card with an i7-8700 CPU and 16 gigabytes of RAM. Now, I'd say that's pretty standard in today's age. It is nothing fancy whatsoever, yet I still get optimal performance in this game, great FPS, while the game still looks pretty crisp in my opinion. You know, if you look at all my videos, it looks crisp, I get great performance. These are the settings for just that. So let's get right into it. So, display mode is on full screen. Resolution is at 1080. Now, I know a lot of people like to play in 1440p. I don't have that yet. I plan on upgrading that in the future. I don't know how much that would change, performance wise, but that's later down the line, so I couldn't tell you. Vertical sync is turned on. Now you don't need to turn this on. I only suggest it for like maybe content creators if you're recording your footage. This does prevent screen tearing. You might not see screen tearing on your end, but if you record footage at 60 FPS while you're playing at 144 FPS, you might see screen tearing in your footage. This will help. Gamma is at 2.2. Now this is default at 2. And I just raise it just a little bit because it doesn't make the game look too bright at all, but it does help with those very dark corners and spotting enemies, because there's a lot of dark corners in this game where the shadow is just perfect and somebody could sit in that corner and you wouldn't be able to spot them unless your gamma was raised. I think 2.2 is that perfect sweet spot. Alright, so now with the field of view, mine is at 90, right? I know a lot of players like to raise this up to 100. Now let me tell you a couple reasons why not to do that. So when you raise it to 100, yes, you get bigger peripherals and you see more of the world. But when you're at 90, you're more zoomed in, which is going to help your aim overall. You know, you're going to have a larger target to aim at. And especially with a game like this, it's really hard to spot players, whether they're just far away and they have some really good camouflage or whatever. Having it zoomed in is definitely going to be a lot easier to spot players. Just look at the screen comparison, for example. On the left is 90 FOV, on the right is 100 FOV. And you can definitely tell that the 100 FOV, you can see that it's smaller targets, even though I'm standing in the exact same spot. And on the left, it's more zoomed in. You have a larger target. You can spot easier. Not only that, you have way less room to aim with. So it could lead to more precision aiming. So like overall, I think 90 is just a great spot to be at. It's a good default spot. If you're at 100, don't worry. Start slowly bringing that down, go from like 100 down to 98, then down to 96, whenever you feel comfortable, and then just start adjusting from there until you find your sweet spot. Now for the quality. Now I'm not going to go through like every single detail of every single one, but for the majority of the part is anti-aliasing should be maxed out to TAA. That's what's going to make the game look so crisp, and then you can just lower everything else. All the other details can be lowered. I definitely suggest view distance on high. You can lower that if you're having some FPS problems, maybe you have a lower PC specs than me. Same thing with post-processing. I put that on medium. These are kind of like the two specs I raise simply because my PC can handle it. And now frame smoothing, I like that turned on. Frame limiter, 144. I definitely suggest always putting your frame limiter on. It actually does make a difference, especially for me at least. And I just put it on my monitor refresh rate. And this usually stables out FPS, in my opinion. Motion blur turned off. Nobody likes motion blur. Picture in picture is cool and all for your scope setting. It looks badass. I only do it if I'm playing like co-op and I want like a milsim experience. If not, normal is perfectly fine in my opinion. I've been rocking normal since day one. Not to mention picture in picture does cause a little bit of optimization issues, like a little bit of FPS drop whenever you're using it. So in my opinion, I just kind of kept it on normal. You can change that if you want, and if your PC can handle it. Everything else here, nothing really fancy, I'd say. Just copy and paste and you should be good to go. Alright, now to quickly go through our controls. With these three tabs, there's nothing you really have to worry about except for maybe manual bipod deploy. I used to have it on back in the day, but I found it easier to just keep auto deploy on, simply because I don't use bipods that much. Not to mention, this saves an extra key. And then whenever you do have auto bipod on, you can actually fold your bipod by using the underbarrel attachment key, whatever that's assigned to. You can fold that so you don't have to worry about that, and then unfold it whenever you want to bipod. So it makes it pretty easy, and it's a cool animation. All right, on to look sensitivity. So my look sensitivity is at 0.11, and then I have a DPI setting of 1500 on my mouse. That's both X and Y. So I get this question quite frequently, and that's how to improve your aim on Sandstorm. Well, I'm about to tell you applies to basically any game, but what I found out a couple years ago was that a lot of pro players like to slow down their sensitivity. Look at Shroud, for example. He has 400 DPI on his mouse and really low in-game sense. Now, when you slow down your aim like that, you're just way more precise. You know, you don't over flick. And it's great. You become more consistent with your aim. Back in the day, I used to have really high sensitivity, and I was just very inconsistent. Now it looks cool when you're going off on a really cool streak and your shots are hitting, but for the most part, you're going to be really inconsistent. And when you slow down your aim, you just become more precise. Now, it also depends on what type of method you use to aim with. You know, I am a wrist guy. I aim with my wrist. And then Shroud, he uses his entire arm to aim. So it all becomes preference at the end of the day, whatever you feel most comfortable with. But that's the reason why Shroud has such a really, really low sensitivity, is because he uses his entire mouse pad to aim. While a guy like me, I only use my wrist. That's why I have a higher sensitivity than Shroud. But it feels slow to me because, you know, it's just a different method. So it all just becomes, preference at the end of the day, how you can adjust to it. What I do, especially from switching games, like if I go play Hunt Showdown for a weekend and I come back to this game, it might feel a little weird, or maybe I'm rusty. I haven't played for a couple weeks, and I hop back on Sandstorm. What I do is I retract my look sensitivity. I'll go from 0.11 where it is now to maybe like 0.08 or 0.09, and I'll play a game or two like that, and the moment I try and hit a flick or aim to a guy and it just felt too slow and restricting, then I'll raise it up by 1 decimal. Play another game, then I'll raise it up 1 more decimal if I feel restricted again, until I find that sweet spot. And that's just me personally. I know there's a lot of muscle memory that's involved, but other games really throw off your aim. And this is at 0.11. As you can see, this can maybe stay like this for like a month or maybe 2 months. But the moment I come back on Sandstorm and have to adjust my aim, it can go back to 0.1 or 0.09, and it can stay like that for a month. So it's always kind of adjusting just a little bit. But yeah, that's kind of overall my aim. Now with the rest of the settings, you can really just copy and paste. There's not really much to talk about, except for maybe focus sensitivity. I have it at 0.6. That just helps whenever you focus. It just slows down your aim whenever you need it. That's basically it on that. So this is my audio tab. I know people might want to see it. It really doesn't matter. It's all about preference at the end of the day. These settings are catered to recording footage with, so everybody is different. Feel free to just copy and paste if you'd like. There's not really much I have to point out, but here's my game settings. Alright, onto my keybinds. So I'm going to scroll through this pretty fast. You can just feel free to copy and paste if you'd like. The only thing I really got to point out to you guys is that crouch and slide are keyed separately. Naturally, they're keyed with under 1 key. And the reason why I keyed them separately like this is because if you looked at my how to get better at Insurgency Sandstorm video, my very first tip is on how to cancel your sprint delay and ADS faster off of sprint. And how to do that is you're basically sprinting, and instead of aiming off a sprint, which would create a sprint delay, you would simply just crouch after sprinting, and you can ADS much faster. But if you have these 2 keys combined, you might accidentally slide. And if you simply just, split it up into 2 different keys, you prevent that slide. All right, on to the next thing I gotta point out, and it is leaning. So my leaning keys are actually bind to the sides of my mouse buttons instead of the natural Q and E. And I do this simply because it promotes fluent movement. When you have it on Q and E, what it does is it prevents your movement keys from being used at the same time when you're trying to lean. So say you're trying to lean left and move left at the same time, you're gonna have to think twice about that, and you might have to put your fingers in an uncomfortable position just to do just that. But when it's your side mouse button keys and you're using your thumb, which isn't doing anything, you can just be more fluent within the motion. And then not to mention, it really helps if you drive. to memorize your side mouse buttons as leaning, because whenever you want to, use your blinker and go left, you point the blinker down, and whenever you want to go right with your blinker, you point up. So that could help a lot of people in the future. Now, the last thing I really got to point out is ADS hold. Now, I always suggest ADS hold. All the pro players do it. It just promotes for instantaneous fluent movement by using hold instead of toggle. If you like toggle, go ahead. But if you want better aim and improve that, I always suggest going hold. Now, with the rest of the settings, you can just copy and paste. You see Psycho Optic is now Q. You can use Q and E now, now that you have those saved up, and use those keys for maybe explosives or whatnot. Save some room, and it's a lot easier to just quickly press those keys for an inventory equipment rather than holding it down for leaning. Alrighty guys, that's basically everything that I had to show for my settings. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope it really helps out a lot. I thought I'd kind of go in depth in some of the settings that helped me out, and hopefully it helps you guys out. So yeah, that's basically it guys. If you liked the video, leave a like and subscribe for more. This is MG Gibbs, I'm out. Deuces.